That's a whole big thing. It's fucking stupid. Never play sports. Always draw. Always do nerd things. You can't be hurt in nerd things.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me as always is my co-host, Seth.
How's it going?
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because his heart went all wibbly-wobbly with the feather and we had to throw him off the boat. But our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here but is sworn only to watch and never interfere.
So today we watched episode 5 of season 1 of Moon Knight, which originally aired April 27th, 2022, written by Jeremy Slater, Danielle Iman, and Rebecca Kirsch, and directed by Mohammed Diab. Andrew, in this episode, Mark and Steven search through their memories to find their truth or become left behind. Do you remember that book or movie about the Christian rapture?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened. So in a sentence or less, what did you think?
No. In a sentence or less, what did you think?
So, I think this is the best Marvel Cinematic Universe thing they've made. I unfortunately do not think I like it. And I think it's because we're at episode 54 of our show, and it's too little too late. But I think this does, good things. I just don't like them. You hated it. You absolutely hated it. You're so fucking pissed.
That wasn't a no. You told me first. That was a no. That is my sentence or less. I did not like this. I did not like this.
I think you hated
episode.
it because you hate things. I don't think you liked how it was a Marvel Cinematic Universe story without superheroes. And so that's a little boring.
That's exactly what it is.
I think you didn't like it because...
I didn't like it because it did absolutely everything on paper that I have wanted these to do, but I think it does it poorly. And I think it's too little too late. I also think, much like last episode, it is convoluted and all over the place, and it doesn't understand the weight of anything that it puts into it, and it's just a big, sloppy mess.
What about when Khonshu said the title of the show? And he said, yes, you shall become a Moon Knight.
I pointed at the screen, and I said, I know that! That's the name of the show!
I hated that when Khonshu was like, you will be... my Moon Knight.
So that is something that, it sounds so stupid, but that was where I was just like, yeah, okay. I kind of like that because it's dumb. And of course, he's called Moon Knight, but no one ever actually fucking says it in the show. So at some point, someone has to say it.
Also, I was validated because remember the other episode when I was talking about when we were talking about the thing about the eye, and they're like, "Oh, this means the tongue, and the tongue is that's how Amun comes into play." And I was like, "Well, how does it come into play any more than anything else?" And then in this episode, Khonshu was like, "You're my avatar, and you're going to be my hands and all my senses."
Yeah. You said that I didn't agree with you.
Well, you didn't quite. You were like, well, he can see
because
things.
You called out the tongue specifically.
You said he could. You did agree with me, but you did say that it made more sense because he can see things, and I agreed with you until the show didn't. But anyways,
I didn't like this. I think the whole framing of this episode is stupid and bad. I hate the psych ward shit. It makes no sense.
This is going to be a weird thing. This is going to be a weird thing.
Bouncing back and forth. I want to also start off, Retroactive put down even more so for last episode. I said I didn't really care how we just suddenly cut to this psych ward crap at the back end of the episode, and it was weird and jarring because it didn't fit. Why not just have a shorter episode last episode, and then credits... This one didn't have an after credits thing, which is fine. I just expect the second to last episode to have one these days. Have an after credits thing on that episode that's him waking up in the psych ward, and then start this episode there. So at least there's a little bit of what's going on here. But there's none of it. It just keeps cutting back, and I was like, what is this accomplishing? Why is Harrow here? It's all in his mind, but what is it? What is it and why? And the show doesn't care. I think that's my problem, is I have a million questions. And the reason I hated this episode so much is that I have a million questions, and I'm sure, none of them really matter. It's all nitpicking. But the show doesn't fucking care. And it's so fucking annoying to watch a show throw all this crap out there and then go, you fucking figure it out. It pisses me off. Like, this episode made me angry.
I can tell. And it's going to make this even worse because I honestly didn't care. Like, I've been kind of saying this for each episode where I'm just like, I think this is a good series. I just don't think I care. And then you sit down and you say, this show sucks and I hate everything about the psych ward and I hate emotional crap. And that's hyperbole. I know. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I think there's problems in here. And I didn't mind the psych ward stuff last episode. But I'm not really sure how to tackle this episode, to be honest. Especially with how kind of angry you are.
Okay, there's a bit of hyperbole in my anger, as there always is.
But you do sound angry.
It's like, more frustrated, amped up for show.
But I'm not sure how, like I said, I'm not sure how to tackle it because I'm just kind of like, you're sitting there and you're like, doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a total shit show. And I'm like, I don't have like concrete evidence to debate that point.
Again,
and it's like a gut feeling thing on my end.
Hyperbolic statements. It comes down to, I think this show is everything on paper that I want these shows to be, but it does all of it poorly. I just don't think it's not a superhero show, it's not an adventure show, it's not a psychological show, it's not an emotional show. Each episode is its own weird mishmashed thing that fails to deliver at the proper levels that it should. Like, I like a lot of the stuff that happens in this episode. I just don't like how it happens and how haphazard and all over the place it all is. I don't think the explanation for Steven really works.
Why is that? Like, I guess I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't understand.
Okay, like this is gonna be nitpicking. Don't even bother like disagreeing with me here because I know you do, and I can't back it up. When it comes down to it, the explanation for Steven is that it's a personality to protect him from his mother. But that just means like Steven lives in like ignorant bliss. But then at the same time, Mark doesn't allow Steven to know what happened with their mother, which means Mark has to come out when his mother beats him. So it's not like it's protecting Mark from anything. It just allows Mark to go, I guess there's someone out there who's not being beaten by their mother who looks like me. Like, I don't understand the point of the personality. And I don't say that, I'm going to say something, and I'm not saying this is what the show has to do. But typically, when you have this sort of thing, it's the personality that is Mark, the aggressive one that takes charge, that is violent. That's the personality that comes out to stand up to mom, or like can take the beatings that mom gives. Mark doesn't care. Mark has no fear. Mark's tough. So if Steven was the dominant personality, Mark comes in to protect Steven. Mark is the personality that Steven created to protect him from his mother. But that's not the case. Steven is told to us to be the personality that is protecting Mark, but it's not true. That's not what actually happens. Steven is just the personality that comes in when mom's banging on the door, but then in order for, as far as I understand, for this to make sense, Mark has to come back out when she does her attack. Also, when it happens, he looks at the poster and he's like, Stephen Grant, or it's like something like, when danger's near, Stephen Grant has no fear. And I was like, Stephen is a coward. Like, he's not as bad of a coward as he was but at the beginning, like, he's very scattered and
so I will say that you're entirely right here.
Thank you.
And honestly, in a way that I am wrong. So you are correct in that Stephen exists to protect Mark. That's what the show says. But that you're right in that's not what the show does. And I'm stupid and I drink. And I think I drank before I ate and drank water.
I almost drank while I was watching this because
you're like another psych ward episode.
No, I was ordering sushi and I was like, I could go for like some sake or something, and then I ended up not.
And that's why you caught this. You busted it wide open. We're gonna take this to the press.
And I mean, maybe I missed something.
No, you are entirely right. Because I bought hook, line, and sinker. Steven exists to protect Mark. Because I am fine with, you said like Mark's the tough guy, he's the violent one. I am fine with this penultimate episode switcheroo to be like Mark is the emotionally like fragile one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that too. I just don't think the show utilizes explanation properly.
There's a big wrench in what you not in what you said, but in what you revealed, that Steven exists to protect Mark from his mom. But Mark, like I didn't realize
Mark protecting Steven from the mom. Like the whole
what had to have happened is that Mark was afraid of his mom, turned into Steven. Mark's mom barged in the door and then said, "Oh, I can't let Steven be hurt. I'll protect Steven," which completely nullifies the purpose of Steven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good I mean,
And
catch.
again, if it was just like Steven is the personality that gets to live, Mark's quote-unquote life without the fear of their mom, I get that. But then I don't understand what Mark gets out of it and what Mark gets out of like going to all the lengths that he does.
I mean, that's the only
Steven.
reason I could see is that Mark created Steven to live the life he can't. His ignorance is bliss life. But it is a weird thing to just like you said, I'm going to make this person that I need to protect.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of roundabout. Again, we don't know anything about dissociative identity disorder and stuff like that. Maybe everybody is going nuts about the accuracy on this. As layman observers, as a layman observer, I didn't catch it. As smart observer, you caught it, and I wholeheartedly 100% agree that, like, this doesn't make sense.
And like you said, I think, the idea of, tough guy Mark creating a vulnerable personality that can live a better life than he does is fine. I think there's an interesting story in there and an interesting, like, twist on the, not stereotype, I guess stereotype, but like what is the word that I just can't think of?
Strongman scary.
When you see the same idea over, I just can't think of the term for whatever reason. Now I'm dumb.
You already proved you're smart. You can be dumb the whole rest of the episode.
I think that's all fine. I just don't think the story utilizes it and the story explains it properly. And I feel like the story went for the curveball without thinking about how the curveball actually affected.
It's like a little too convoluted.
Especially because the whole episode is Mark freaking out about witnessing the stuff with his mom, and you think it's like, oh, he's just bottling it up, and that's probably part of it. But at the end, he's just like, you were never supposed to see this. And it's like, he was basically damning both of them to eternal death because he didn't want to hurt Steven's feelings. And that's annoying. Like, last episode when they meet up and they hug and it felt unearned, but I was like, at least maybe they're not going to fucking fight anymore. And then this episode, they spend all episode
Mark's
fighting.
still the worst.
I think Steven, I think they're both the worst.
But Mark is like...
Mark in this episode is the one kind of like doing what I hated about Steven before. But Steven is also annoying in that he just like he's like following the kid and he's like, oh no, all this stuff is happening. I gotta help those kids. And I'm like, you realize this is a memory, right? Like, this was explained to you before. It's not like I'm picking up on context clues.
That bugged me.
Like, this was explained to you and then you don't seem to understand the situation you're in. And that kind of shit also gets under my skin.
That bugged me that Towerette like explained the situation and then Mark is selfish enough to say, but we don't need to do that. You probably shouldn't go in the... Like...
He does do that, but then when they go in and they see all the bodies and he explains to Steven what's going on and they see that the scale is balancing and Mark's like, oh my gosh, you're right, let's do this. Okay, what else do you want to know? Maybe you have to tell me something. And then, immediately, Steven goes, oh look, there's a little kid over there. He's like, wait, never mind, let's just kill ourselves because I don't want you to see the bad thoughts.
I didn't like how Towerette... One, I don't understand why it's Towerette and not Anubis. But that's neither here
she's
nor
taking
there.
them to Anubis. She says that.
Yeah, I guess...
Maybe it's so that I don't know the details of these gods.
All I know is that Anubis is the one that does the scales and weighs the heart. And I'm like, why is like the goddess of fertility and children here?
I bet it's probably because they wanted to have the funny bit of the cute hippo.
The imposing hippo being like, hey!
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why. But it's just kind of something that...
A jackal makes it a little harder.
Yeah.
Especially since we already fought a jackal earlier.
It was just something where I was like... And I kind of... I guess I didn't think about it yesterday, or last episode, but it's just something that I like Egyptian mythology and pantheon and stuff, so I was like, why is she doing that? Anyways, but, it really did bug me, and I did not like that Towerette explains the situation, but, like, Steven is absolved from anything. Towerette explains that, like, you guys need to figure out how to balance the scales and, like, talk to each other and, like, air your grievances. But Steven doesn't need to, because Steven's perfect.
Yeah, I also think it's a little weird. This is minor, but I didn't like how, when she sees them, she asks if they're twins, and they never explain their situation to her. But then, when she's like, I gotta weigh your hearts, she grabs both of them, and I was like, how are you supposed to remember which heart's which? Like, I'm sure, like, you can remember which one's in which hand, but I was like, it seems weird to grab both of them, but then she weighs both of them together, which makes sense, because they're the same person.
Because we know the thing, but she doesn't.
But she doesn't seem to know that. It was never told to her, and what she says at the beginning when she meets them seems to indicate that she does not know their specific situation.
Correct.
Also, it makes sense in that, like, they are one person, but it doesn't make sense because it seems to be that they are two souls. Like, Steven seems to be a full soul.
Which you
And I
could
could be
argue.
wrong.
I mean, you could. I think that's an arguable point.
I think weighing them together makes sense. They are the same person. But I also think both of them being on the boat together seems to imply they are separate souls with separate outcomes in the afterlife.
I think that's a rough area that, like, I wholeheartedly...
This is more of a nitpick observation.
I agree
than a
with your nitpick
call-out.
observation in the same way that I was like, why isn't Anubis doing this? But in a storytelling observation, I can buy, yep, they're two souls.
Yeah.
They are, for all intents and purposes, they are two different people in one body. Let's see. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Mark had a brother named Roro. I don't know what his name actually was. If it was Robert, or if his name was actually Roro. It only gets said twice as far as I know, and it's only the mother, and she calls him Roro. But he had a brother.
Randall.
They went out in the rain. They climbed into a
Cave.
cave.
And it flooded.
He died. She blamed Mark for it. She never came to any of his birthdays unless she was drunk and telling him that he was the worst.
I
She
don't
used
know
to
what
beat
this
him.
says about me.
You thought it was hysterical.
I
When
did. No, I know you're supposed to hate the mom, probably, and I understand that, like, it's a grieving mother, yada, yada, yada. She was a total piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she made me angry. And I was just like, you fucking divorce her ass, Mr. Spectre. You get you and your son out of this manipulative home into a nice place. Because he has, like, the birthday or whatever. And so you don't know how long between his brother dies and his birthday. You don't know. You don't have that knowledge.
I think that first one is the first birthday after. Because
Right, but you don't know how long. For all we know,
Yeah.
Randall died the day before his birthday.
Oh, yeah.
But then a whole nother year goes by, and his mom is still just a piece of work. And I know that's supposed to be the thing, but I was just
How about when his
sitting there.
dad's like, I'm just going to like leave you here at this table with your mom, who comes in and screams, and he, at no point does
for
the
a
dad
whole
run back into
year
the room.
has absolutely hated Mark. It's just like, I cannot imagine that home, and I felt so angry and uncomfortable at those scenes. And I know you're probably supposed to, but it was just something where nothing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been that visceral for me. You know, we can hyperbolically joke about, like, I hate Ultron and I hate this and that. I have not hated anything more, meta or not, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe than I hated Mrs. Spectre.
But
Yeah, but
his brother dies. She hates
but his
him.
brother dies.
But his brother died, so I forgive her.
But I get where she's coming from.
She beats Mark. Mark leaves at some point. I don't know. He makes a Steven personality. It doesn't make any sense.
So
and Mark
you're right,
is a
and that
mercenary.
Steven doesn't make any sense because, like you said, he's
I
based...
thought we were going to see that third personality that was beating up people before.
That's next
It never
episode. That's
happened.
next season.
Maybe it's not another personality, but like when they were walking
It was such a
around in
weird
the-
throwaway line.
It was. And I know that typically Mark has 3 or more personalities, in the comics at least. But also when they were, last episode, when they were like running through and when he found Steven in a sarcophagus, they go into another room and there's another sarcophagus with someone beating on it. I was like, oh, that's the third personality. Let's find out who that is. And then we don't. And I was like, I guess that's saved for next episode. It's probably Mark and the new personality have to team up to do whatever.
It has all the benefits and none of the detriments of both personalities.
It's me, the mom beater.
I am Mrs. Spectre. No, shit. I was going to say something. Damn it. I lost it. I was surprised that we're doing this late in the show.
Doing what?
Like,
Child abuse?
child abuse. I'm surprised that after 54 pieces of media, here we are, child abuse.
Took this long. I mean, I guess it's technically started when Tony Stark called that kid a pussy.
You're definitely correct there. No, I'm surprised that Khonshu's still, like, trapped. We kind of took a whole episode to just not care about stuff, which I'm fine. I mean, I am fine.
That seems to be the finale thing, is the finale is get Khonshu, then fight.
That's because everything now that Spider-Man did it, everything is now like, this is who Moon Knight really is. This is the origin.
Mark learned the true meaning of being Moon Knight, not being a baby about your mom beating you up.
Khonshu's Moon Knight. I didn't like... So you brought up a good point. This is what I was going to say a while ago. You brought up a good point about Mark seeing the Tombbuster... I think that's the dumbass movie name. Doombusters poster, and it's like, Stephen Grant has no fear. And then Mark was like, yeah, I need to make a personality that has no fear so I can withstand my abusive mother. And then he makes Stephen, who has a lot of fear.
And doesn't
and
stand
needs
up
to
to
be
his mother.
protected. I know Mark's a little baby boy, but maybe work on it. Maybe maybe workshop that personality a little bit more.
What was Steven? Okay, there were a couple times, and one of them was like right when Steven says, "My mom's still alive, I talk to her every day on the phone." Mark says something, and I couldn't hear what he said. And then when we see that when Mark leaves the funeral, and then Steven shows up because Mark couldn't handle his mother passing, he like picks up his phone and calls his mom, and he holds a conversation with her. So is Steven like so fully disassociating
I think
that he just holds his own conversation?
I think he just pretends his mom is on the phone. Because that's like...
I find that bizarre.
Yeah.
That feels like a convenient answer because they wanted to have him talk to his mom so they could have the, "Oh my gosh, your mom's actually dead. Boom, gotcha. Your head's exploded." I feel like they didn't actually want to think that through because neither Steven nor Mark seem to be separated from reality. They are just split personalities that live their own lives.
So, like, why would Steven then, like, do this imaginative disassociated thing? Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Like, they're not crazy. They're not unhinged. I mean, Mark is violent, but they're not, like, unhinged or, like I said, they're not, like, separated from reality in such a way that they are imagining anything. They just are two personalities, one of which doesn't know the other one existed.
I think that's fair, and I think, again, I can just sit there at the reveal and say, I'll buy it, whatever.
See, I can't let that kind of stuff slide, because I think a lot of this is good ideas that can lead to good storytelling, but it's done so sloppily.
It's done very sloppy. After talking
like the rest of the MCU, it's the ends justify the means. It doesn't actually care about the explanation. It cares that there is an explanation.
It's sloppy.
So that it can do what it wants to do.
As someone who came in on the other side of this, it is sloppy, and I can't disagree. And I think because a lot of the stuff on paper is what I've been looking for, is why I can hand wave that stuff a little easier.
You're No Way Home in it all over again. Watch. Episode 6, you're going to get that post-nut clarity. You're going to be right here with me.
Hey, you know what I hated? I hated when Professor Harrow is talking to Steven, and he's talking to Mark, and he's like, "So you think there's a hippo god out there?" And he like goes through this whole thing to make Mark feel kind of stupid and be like, "Well, that's not reality." And I'm sitting here and being like, I mean, why? This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why is that crazy?
Well, I agree with you, but I also go back to, like, I think the worst stuff in the entire episode, outside of how bad it is that a mother would beat her own son, the worst stuff in the entire episode is the Harrow stuff.
I will probably agree with you once you explain it, like I've been doing all episode.
Again,
I think
on
that's
paper,
the stuff
on paper, that stuff is fun. In a different show, I think the idea of like I said last episode, the idea of the character being a superhero who is also in a psych ward where it's like, is any of this real, is fine. Problem is, we already know that's not.
I don't need it to be real.
But I guess here's my thing. We already know that they are dead. This has been explained to us. We've watched 4 episodes before this to know that, they're not pulling the rug under us. We know it's part of the MCU, but even outside of that, we watched 4 episodes. It's not going to nullify those 4 episodes to be like, oh, look, he's actually in a psych ward, but we're still going to do this wishy-washy thing where maybe they're actually dead. That's dumb. We know what's real. But Mark keeps, like, flipping in and out into this alternate universe where they're in a psych ward, where Harrow is the doctor for no fucking reason. And I said before, Steven's not like disassociating and like hallucinating as anything, but he is hallucinating these conversations with the mother. I take that back though, because Mark is doing this, but then Steven gets pulled into it too later. Mark is like hallucinating this whole thing for no fucking reason. And it's all there because someone at some point in the writing stages said, it would be a fun idea to do this. This is what the comics have done.
You're not wrong.
Because I don't know what it serves. I understand what it serves from like a thematic, like this is a fun idea point, but like within the story, what is that serving? It's just like Mark freaking out and then going into that and being like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe this is all fake. And then he goes back into the other thing. And he's like, no, never mind. This is real. But then he goes back to the Harrow thing. And he's like, you're right. Maybe this is all fake. And it's stupid and pointless and doesn't make any sense. I don't know why Harrow's the one doing it. I don't know why Harrow is like, let's call your mom. We'll put her on the phone, but it's actually a dial tone. Like, this is all like nonsense. It's just nonsense stuff happening.
It all services the writing, not the plot.
It's like in The Sixth Sense where you can't think about how, the movie does say like, ghosts just like sometimes don't remember the moments in between moments. But that's how The Sixth Sense works, is that like Bruce Willis
Wouldn't that have been something?
Like, can't remember that he wasn't actually having a conversation with the kid's mom. He just, like, the scene starts with the kid walking in, and he's sitting there across from the mom, and it's to fool the audience into thinking he's here to talk to the kid, and he's been here the whole time and isn't a ghost. Like, it's fine. But like in this, it serves no purpose other than just to be like another weird snag and everything. And at that point, just fucking cut it.
This is very good, because as I've been saying, I think this is the best Marvel Cinematic Universe property. I think it does interesting things. I think it's different. But I think everything you're saying is why I have that big asterisk on it, and I say, but I hate it. Because it all is sloppy, it all is in service of writing instead of in service of plot, and it's problematic. I think the psych ward stuff and the stuff with Harrow is interesting because it's tense. I don't need it to be real. I don't need it to pretend it's real. I don't need the show to...
Because I don't feel it's tense.
I guess
because
I like...
I know it all leads to nothing.
I like how they play off each other.
Is a bomb tense if you've already been told that it will never blow up?
I think you... Yeah, I think you can make it tense.
I guess, in your defense, you can make it tense for the characters who don't know. And as the audience, you can know it'll never go off, but you know that it's tense for the characters because you don't know what the characters will do, not knowing the information that the bomb will never go off.
It's the same thing as any superhero story or any hero story where it's like, is it tense if you know that the hero's going to win?
I guess, but
it's about, this was kind of a big thing in like the One Piece world recently, where people were complaining about how power scaling and all this stuff. And it's just like, well, who cares? Like, we know Luffy's going to win, yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, it all doesn't matter. Like, the fight's not important. What the fight represents is.
And what it represents is violence.
And what it represents is fucking beating alcoholic, abusive mothers. But so, that's why I can find a scene between Mark and Harrow in the psych ward interesting to watch, because I think they play off each other well.
Let me ask you this, though. Like, what is it actually servicing? Like, what is the tension there? We know none of it's real. We know, like, they're not having any conversation that's really leading into anything. The closest it does to anything is Steven's resolution to realize that his mother's actually dead when Harrow tries to hand the phone to him and he refuses to take it. But, like, the stuff with Mark, what is the tension there? What is their conversation? What is it leading to? It's not telling us anything about Mark's psyche. It's not telling us anything about what's actually going on. It's not telling us anything about Harrow, because that's not really Harrow. It's just they had the actor.
It's a totally surface level thing where, and you're going to think very low of me here.
Don't worry, I already do.
Well, you're going to think lower. I think a lot of it is, it's different. I think that goes a long way after all this time watching the MCU. I think the power dynamic is interesting. Mark's the hero, but he's not in a position of power right there. He is like unequivocally way lower than Harrow is. Harrow. I've always said it different, I think. And like you always say, in like a different show or a different property or something, like, yeah, that will say things. And I agree that I don't think it services much more than just a visual cue. But I think I can watch that and say, I'm getting away with watching a Marvel Cinematic Universe property, but it's like doing things that it like looks like a thing that I like.
This is just like flashes of No Way Home all over again, where you're like, I just wanted to see 3 Spider-Man, and I saw 3 Spider-Man, and I clapped.
No,
and this is like, I just wanted to see something different, and I saw something different, and I clapped. And for me, like, it's the same thing in both No Way Home and this, where I'm like, it's to the service of nothing. There is no substance. There's no meaning. There's no...
It's actually kind of convoluted into what they've given
it drives
us.
Nothing forward. You literally cannot think about it for a fraction of a second without getting a migraine. And like last episode, we both kind of said like, maybe we're stupid because we just like couldn't follow what was going on in that tomb and everything. And I think that is on us, that like, I think the plot is not super clear because it's just kind of been like each episode's kind of doing its own thing. And the overall plot is just stop Harrow. But I do think like in the tomb, we probably could have figured out what was going on. I just did not care enough to devote the brain cells to it. But in this one, no, this is just bad writing. Like, this is not on me. I may have missed details somewhere. I'm sure there is somebody who could write some kind of bullshit explanation as to why what I said didn't make sense actually does, because you always can if you try fucking hard enough. But that's all retroactive.
I think I've
like,
turned
this is
into
bad
what
writing.
Paul Feig wants me to be. I just want
A pile of gold.
I just want to look at a screen and be satisfied. Like, I don't know. You're not wrong. You're right. I don't know why, if you push me against the wall.
I don't recognize you anymore.
If you push me against the wall and say, why do you fucking like this stupid psych ward bullshit? I don't think I have an answer for you. I really don't. More than, I don't know, it's something different, and like, it's filmed in a way that affects me, I guess. Like, it's filmed in a way that feels tense, and I'm fine with that. And I shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. But here I am. A mouth-breathing popcorn muncher. But, like, it's a really fascinating question because I don't, when you confronted me, I don't have an answer for you. I really don't, and it bugs me, actually. It feels right, but it doesn't serve it. You're right in that it doesn't service anything. It doesn't move anything forward. It convolutes a bunch of stuff.
I mean, I think out of everything in this show, outside of, I think the magic is the most fun idea, just having magic but I think that's my version of, like, it's doing something different, is the magic is finally magic, and I think that could be, I don't think it's fine in this, but, like, that's where I'm like, it's doing something different, and that's where my credit goes. But, like, beyond that, like, I think the psych ward stuff on paper is the most interesting thing the show could do. If the show is built around that. Like I said last episode, if the show was a show that was
second guessing what was real.
Yeah, if it was like, Moon Knight the superhero, I don't know, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight the PI, Stephen Grant the archaeologist, or I don't know, college professor, or I don't even care, keep him the gift shop guy at the museum. Mark Spector the mercenary, throw in another personality, and then also, like, there's magic stuff going on, there's psych ward stuff going on. Is any of it real? And honestly, if you do the psych ward stuff and it's not so blatantly fake like it is in this, where it is just, like, so clear because it's also, like, bizarre in the way it's filmed in the set and everything. If you played it more straight and just said, like, you had the psych ward, but it took place in the MCU. So that the gods, like, you said that line about, like, there's a hippopotamus and that's stupid. And it's like, yeah, I guess we haven't seen anything like a talking hippopotamus, but it's also the Marvel
We've seen
universe.
A lot of stuff.
Weird stuff has happened.
There's a celestial in the water.
Yeah, and it's like, is this actually, is this guy actually just crazy in the MCU? Or, is he in the psych ward, but also he's a superhero? And, like, he's doing superhero stuff out there, and he needs to get out of the psych ward? Or is the psych ward all in his mind? Or is it, some kind of magic thing? Like, I think that is a very compelling idea for a show, because that's exactly what some of the Moon Knight comics I've read have done. But that's not what this is. It's just throwing in these ideas right before the end, because those are things that the comic, like the rest of the MCU, it's just like, those are the things the comics do and the things the fans like to see. So put them in there. But you don't have to think about why it is. You don't have to think about how it is. And instead, like, the plot of the show is not interesting. Hera wants to raise a god. In the end, that's fine, but it is completely baseline serviceable. There's nothing more going on to it. But if the plot of the show was what is real, what is not, then you can have this thing. It's like, does he actually have to stop this guy? Or is this the villain? Like, they mentioned Bushman, who is a big villain in the Moon Knight comics, and he's just name dropped in this. I doubt we'll see him until, if this gets a season 2, maybe he'll be season 2. But I just don't know what this show is. I don't know what it wants to be other than flashing the images people want to see in front of their eyes. And, like, on paper, it is different from the other MCU stuff. If nothing else, this is the most different the MCU has looked. But it's not different enough for me.
Well, I think it's, I mean, that's your prerogative. I think for me it's not different enough, and more kind of what you're saying here, where it's sloppy and unfocused and problematic.
I guess, yeah, that's more than it's not different enough. But I think this episode is the most Marvel-y it's felt, almost entirely because of Hippo Lady. She felt like a Marvel character. Mm-hmm. And also the bit at the end when all the corpses crawl onto the boat and it's like, time to fight the people you killed, but only 5 of them. It was just stupid because they needed an action scene. And it's only like just 3 or 4 random people, and they just fight them and they turn into the sand. It was just like, it's a waste of time. It was stupid. And then Steven falls off the boat and it's like, oh no, Steven is the sand person now. Okay. And I think I'd be a little more on board if I knew this wasn't the second to last episode. We have 1 episode left, and there's, like, so much to wrap up. Not, like, actual, like, plot-wise. The plot is just stop Harrow. Get Khonshu, stop Harrow. But, like, they throw in this, like, afterlife stuff and everything at the very last second. We have what's going on with Layla, what's going on with... It's not like you can't address all that, but it is going to be crammed and messy. This finale is going to be a mess.
I'm hoping it's not. Last episode felt long. This episode felt long. I'm hoping the last...
I saw an article that said Moon Knight's finale will have record-breaking length or something, because it's going to be the shortest. It was one of those bullshit articles that's supposed to sound snazzy, and in the end, I don't remember what the runtime is. It's just going to be the shortest of the MCU finales.
You might think of runtimes as time, but did you know time goes back to the beginning of the universe?
I only clicked it because I was like, am I going to have to sit through a 90
Well, and that's what I was worried about. I was worried that the last few episodes have felt long, but...
They've all felt long. This one felt a little short just because I just felt like it kind of like crammed a lot. I don't want a 90-minute finale, but also I'm just like, I kind of want a 90-minute finale because I don't think you can do any sort of justice to this in, 45 to 50-something minutes. I don't think it's possible. It's just going to be a crammed mess. Because it's not even like it ends with Mark waking up. He's still in the underworld. He's still been shot. They haven't rescued Khonshu. They weren't able to contact Layla. That's all going to happen in the last episode. In the last episode, Mark's got to come back to life. We've still got another personality to deal with, unless they're going to make that a season 2 hook, which I think is horse shit. Steven is dead, and that doesn't necessarily need a resolution, but I feel like they're not just going to write Steven out of the show. Maybe they will, because it's not like he's played by a whole other actor. But there's Mark's dead, Khonshu's imprisoned, gotta stop Harrow. What's going on with Layla? That's a lot to tackle in under an hour. It's not impossible, but it's just going to be a sloppy mess.
I'm more fascinated. I cannot stop thinking about how I was swindled.
I think the term is bamboozled.
It looked real, but it wasn't.
It was like I was there.
No,
I thought they really had a talking hippo.
No, I'm talking about and I mean, granted, I started off saying I think this is probably the best show, but I don't like it. And I don't, but I'm so hyper fixated on me being I like the psych ward stuff. It's fun to watch. And you were like, why? And I was like, I don't know.
You just call me out.
And it broke me. It really did. I'm just I'm never going to get to sleep. I'm just going to be I'm going to be lying in bed in sweats. And I'm just going to say, why did I like that? Why? What did it do? Because, again, I think it was just it looked good on the TV. You know what I mean? It looked like a show I would watch. But when you sit down and think about it, it's why is Mark doing this? Because, I mean, I had seen something earlier this week where people were talking, I think after this episode, I saw comments about, I'm never going to know what's real in Moon Knight again. But I wholeheartedly agree with you since last episode, where it's just I know the psych ward is not real.
Yeah. I can't tell if that's people who are idiots or people who are just they want to say their snazzy little hashtag line on Twitter.
And to be fair, I mean, they're not all the same people, but this is a fandom that has people that watch No Way Home multiple times a day, multiple days a week, multiple weeks a month, multiple months a year. And it's just I can see how someone who does that.
I think they're all in.
That's it.
Everything's got to be the best big thing ever, and they can't admit that anything isn't.
I feel bad saying it.
Moon Knight can't be middling. Every Marvel thing has to be the best thing ever unless we all uniformly agree that Eternals sucked.
Which wasn't bad. Eternals wasn't bad, right?
No, Eternals was not a great movie. It was long, it was weird, it was sloppy, it should have been a TV show, but
it wasn't bad.
It wasn't horrible. And honestly, I liked a lot of Eternals, and I liked it more than a lot of Marvel movies. And it's kind of what you said earlier. It was different. I liked what was different about it.
It wasn't as convoluted as
I just think it should have been a TV show. I think Eternals should have been the TV show, Moon Knight should have been the movie. Because this is just slapping so much together. And honestly, I think part of the problem is it's cut into episodes. If it was a movie that just had to fit that 2 to 2.5 hour runtime that every Marvel movie's got to be, I think you could make this flow better.
I mean, you threw me in the deep end earlier, so take everything I say with a grain of salt at this point, because fuck if I know. I feel because each episode feels a little separated from the greater whole, I think it works better as a TV show. And I agree with what you're saying, where as a movie you'd take some of that out. And
my thing is just each episode has felt like its own disjointed thing, and that has been reverberating through the show for me personally. Each episode is different, and not in a good way. Each episode is different in that
I think each episode is different in a fine way. I don't think it's it's
all over the
bugged
place.
Me.
But I think in a movie, you wouldn't just have a 20-minute segment in the movie where he's in the afterlife and also in a psych ward. I feel like the movie would be built around that idea. But in a show, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to have their story about Harrow trying to do his nonsense. And this is all I don't know what they would do. Maybe they would make the same fucking thing as a movie. But I'm just thinking movies often have a lot more cohesion, often more than they even need.
Because they don't have the liberty.
Yeah. So I feel you couldn't just like throw this idea in like they did in this episode. And I think that's the problem is like, I think an episode that's really different like this is fine. I watched Superman and Lois today, and both season 1 and season 2 have an episode that is just like dramatically different from the rest of the show because it's like all kind of like backstory stuff.
I think it kind of works with the Mark Stevens stuff where it's just like, it's a little choppy, like their life is. It's like poetry. It's like it rhymes.
But I don't think that's intentional. I think that is just...
But it works regardless.
I don't think it does, but that's neither
here
nor there.
I don't know. I feel like
Point is-
if this was an Iron Man show, like this was a show about anybody else, it'd bug me more than like, oh well, like whether it's intentional or not, I can sit here and say it doesn't not make sense for what the character is and what's going on and how like Steven does just kind of wake up in Cairo at one point.
I mean, it doesn't matter. The point being is that I think the people that say they will never know what's real or not real in Moon Knight ever again, one episode from the finale, are morons.
And probably hyperbolic.
It's hyperbolic of me to call them morons?
Of them.
No, I think they're morons. Of them. This probably is hyperbolic.
Like you said, I think there's a lot of like we always say.
I have to talk about it as if it blew my mind.
And we're not in the fandoms, but like we always say, we're 54 episodes in this show, this podcast show, not Moon Knight. For those tuning in on this episode only, while we sit here and say, damn, I'm so sick of this, they are like too deep. And they're just like, it's an unfavorable comparison, but I don't know anything else. It's like QAnon, where it's just like, I need to keep doubling down because I can't be wrong. I couldn't have been wrong for all this time. But again, I think fine.
It's a completely different entity, but I think that QAnon is a good...
Like I said, that's not an appropriate comparison.
It's so unnecessarily mean.
That's the only thing I could think of. But I was just like,
you're right. It's the same kind of just like, I gotta double. Like I can't admit that I was ever wrong.
I couldn't admit after 40 movies that it's not good. And I mean, hey, we're the dissenting opinion. The MCU's fine. Like, something that is bad would not be this big. I think that's fair to say.
My vitriol towards the MCU, which is matching the vitriol that you had at the beginning, and I feel like you've kind of softened a bit. It's all hyperbole. It's for comedic effect, but I also just I don't think it's as good as I think the problem is not that it's not good. I just feel like it gets all this like unnecessary praise that stunts everything beyond itself. Like, movies have been reformatted.
Yes.
Like, cinema as a whole, there are still other movies out there, but like cinema as a whole has been reformatted to fit the Marvel mold.
And this is someone who watches things outside the Marvel. Like, I like weird movies, and those still exist. And like, I'm not gonna sit here, and I sent you the article, or not the article, but like the comments about the article. It was just like, if you want to see, we need more adult movies. And it's just like, all these things still exist. And I think it's not entirely Marvel. I think streaming has to do with a lot of it. But, like, the movie experience has changed. And Marvel has been a huge factor in that. Yeah.
It was like I told you when I watched The Mummy Returns the other day. They don't make movies like that anymore. Just straightforward action-adventure
Just
romps.
a 90-minute action-adventure movie.
Don't really exist. Like, I know that you could probably point me in the direction of something on Netflix somewhere. I'm sure they still... But they don't really make those anymore. Everything has to be the next franchise. And not to say that The Mummy wasn't a franchise. It had 3 movies and a
spin-off, like an
spin-off.
8-movie spin-off.
But it wasn't
and a
just like,
and...
it wasn't like built, 20 years into the future, here's our slate of every movie. Like, it wasn't each movie was leading.
And it didn't rewrite the rules
for the next. It was just like, each movie was just like, it was just like every other movie. It was just like, here's our 90-minute action movie romp. It's like completely on its face, is what it is. Doesn't take itself too seriously.
I mean, like I used to say before, like every now and then I'd watch something older or whatever, and I'd say, oh my god, remember when like movies didn't have post-credit scenes? Remember when everything like was just done at the credits? And some of it is, yeah, the show's hyperbole, but there's a lot, regardless of what it is, anything popular is easy to criticize. I think some of it is just like,
we are poo-pooing on everybody's parade.
Yeah, we're yucking people's yum, and they deserve it.
We are the jerks here, but also they are wrong.
I mean, they deserve it because there's 40 MCU movies out there. That means that's 40 less A24 esoteric films that are all the same that I can't enjoy. But I don't know. We come from a comic background.
I think that's the big thing for me.
I feel like I should like it.
These are movies that, on paper, in theory, should be made for me. I don't need them made for me, but, like, I was at one point the target audience for this stuff.
A lot of it comes from just, when we turn on these mics, a lot of it comes from my side going, why don't I like these? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I should. They're not terrible. Like, they're not schlock.
I think they're not very well written, not very well executed.
But it's not like
but
comics
most of them
were.
are fun enough. Oh, yeah. But I think the big thing is just, like, I think a lot of it is everybody blindly praises to the point that you're not allowed to criticize or critique them the same way that you could literally anything else. And it's also just like, I don't know, they should be made for me. They're comic book movies, but they don't embody the stuff in comic books that I like. Each one inches closer to it, but like, I don't know, I want the big, stupid, silly costumes. I told you this outside of the show, I don't like Moon Knight's costume in this show. I think the bandage wraps are a neat idea, and I don't think the costume itself I don't think it looks great, but I don't think it looks bad. I just don't care for it. I think it's busy, like all the MCU costumes. I think it's just kind of like messy. I think it's all white in a way that like I didn't even notice had gold accents until I was drawing it for the cover art for one of the episodes, and I had to look up pictures. It's just, I don't know, it's not embodying the stuff that I think is fun. Like, it has those ideas in there. There's the psych ward and the afterlife and all that, but they're shoved into this episode in a way that doesn't make sense and doesn't really utilize those ideas. And it's all in the background of like just boring follow Harrow as he goes to do the thing plot. And I don't know anymore. I'm the negative Nancy, and I just like can't be pleased by these anymore. I can still have fun with them.
Like we both kind of said, I don't know what the switch was. I think it's probably wholeheartedly that this was just different. After this, we have Multiverse of Madness to watch. Like Doctor Strange, it'll be fun to see Shuma Gorath. Maybe I've been beaten into it enough after watching all this stuff. But like I was thinking during this episode, like back when we used to talk comics every Wednesday, and I moved out of superhero comics a lot earlier than you did. But like, was that any different than this?
Our conversations?
Just like anything. Like, we used to read Marvel comics and talk about them and had a lot of fun with them. And I mean, some were stupid and dumb. But is it the fact that that was still a niche thing and this is, who cares if we're poo-pooing this because we're literally two voices and a giant ocean of people
they were
praising.
still dumb. We used to rate comics, and there was stuff we thought was bad. I remember not liking event books and stuff, and then calling and telling you how some stupid bullshit just happened in some event book, but I was still buying it because I felt like I needed to.
But like, that's the thing, is that we would just, like, maybe it's just growing up, and that's what the world does to you. But I feel like this is not that different than us reading comics 20 years ago. It's just, I've become jaded. Like, I mean, we used to read stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, this is stupid. And then I'd just pick up the next issue like Marvel wanted me to. And I guess maybe the difference is that we called a spade, and then was just like, but I'll still read it because I'm an idiot. I don't know, it's just weird. I think Moon Knight's doing good stuff. I don't know where it sits in the general Marvel fandom. Do you know?
I have no idea.
I should look that up. Like, what is like the big property of the MCU?
Probably No Way Home. It's got to be No Way Home. I think it usurped Endgame as like the big movie.
But like, did people love Endgame because of the story or because of what it was?
No. Yes. I think they thought it was the story. I think that's the problem, is there's no separation for a lot of people.
What's the property that people are watching? Like, I don't think people are rewatching Endgame.
I think they are.
God, those people suck. Those people need a hobby.
I think people are rewatching.
Buy a board game, people who rewatch Endgame. You think people sit down and they say, you want to watch Endgame tonight?
Yep.
No! That's crazy!
I don't think it's like the most watched movie in the Marvel Universe. If you're asking that, it's probably one of the earlier ones.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if people are sitting down and they're like, let's just, you know how like in October we sit down and we're like, let's watch a horror movie. When people just sit down and rewatch a movie, they're like, I just want to be comforted. Let's watch a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
It might be Endgame, dude.
No, that's stupid.
If it's not No Way Home, now that it's out.
Endgame is only decent because of everything that it happened before it.
But those people don't realize, like, they know that, but they don't, like, they just want to see the things. They want to see Captain America pick up Thor's hammer. They want to see Iron Man say, I am Iron Man, and snap his fingers. They want to see all the characters pop out of their portals and pull off their CGI masks.
I think I have more faith
Nope,
in MCU fans. Like, I think what you said is true, and that's what they want.
I mean, if you're really getting down to it, it's probably No Way Home. The only reason I don't put it there is because it hasn't been out long enough. It's probably No Way Home, because I think that is also an easier movie to just watch over and over.
But even like
TV
TV shows.
That one guy did it 400 times.
Like, we don't rewatch things, because there's enough out there that we got to get to. And we like seeing new things. But people like comfort. People sit down and rewatch a Marvel TV show. What do they watch? I'm going to have to look this up. I'm going to have to find them.
I don't know. I don't really think any of the shows. Maybe What If? What If is probably the easiest. I think that's the easiest to just like pop it on.
But What If is nothing.
I think that's why it's the easiest to pop it on, though. Because like I can't imagine sitting down and watching Loki again. I know people love Tom Hiddleston, and I'm sure there are people that do watch it, but I don't think that's like grabbing people to be like, my comfort show is Loki. I don't think anyone's comfort show is Hawkeye. I don't think anyone's comfort show is WandaVision. There might be some. I think a lot of people probably like WandaVision. People really love that crazy Wanda.
You think people watch the last 3 episodes of WandaVision? They skip the first 3?
Yeah. But, like, if it's a single MCU property that is the biggest one that everybody goes back to, your method of rating is weird in that, like, I don't know. What do people just, like, go back as a comfort? Like, what is the one that everyone unanimously agrees on? I have no way of gauging that.
I don't even know
I
if people do. I just
because
figured,
that's the one that I know. That's just the one that I know everybody loves, but I feel like No Way Home has taken its place.
I think No Way Home is probably like the rewatch Marvel movie. I don't know. When people listen to our show, this is for the. I don't know how much of anything you're going to leave in. I would love.
I love when you say that because
you're like perfect. I know exactly when to cut.
No, that just means I sit here and go like, I'm gonna have to listen to so much crap and just keep like skipping and cutting until I figure out where the fuck we continued again.
No,
which means all this is staying in.
I'm really fascinated because we have so many tangents.
When you get on these fascinated kicks that I don't care about, and I am just like, I don't care. I just want a short episode.
Hey, you put together like a 40-minute episode today. That was awesome. No, I am like really fascinated, and this is exactly what you're talking about. I am really fascinated for the like 10 people that listen to our show, and I think we are 2 of them. Hey, Zach, and the man bull who I don't know your real name. Is it fun to listen to us talk about the MCU from a meta standpoint? Or do we just need to
comment on this episode?
Leave a message on
this web zone.
Because then that solves your job, and we know, like, we only need to stick to the show. But I think these, like, meta conversations are kind of interesting, but maybe people don't, and then we'll kick them to the curb and do them outside, and we'll finish, and then I'll be like...
My problem with these meta conversations, especially this conversation specifically, is just like, there's no answer to it, so I can tell you my answer, and then you can say, no, I don't agree, and then we just like circle the drain forever, and the circling the drain is what I hate. When there's just like no conversation, but you're still too fascinated to end it, and I'm just like, I am done.
To be fair, I did that with the episode proper. When you were like, why do you like the psych ward? And I went, oh my God, why do I like the psych ward? And then you kept going on with the plot, and I was like, whoa. We have not moved on. I need to figure this out personally.
we gotta solve Seth.
We gotta deal with Seth right now. So let us know if you only want us to talk about the show, if you like when we talk about the meta MCU stuff.
You say this as if this is gonna stop.
And if you're interested in Seth's personal drama right now, and you need a bonus episode as we deep dive into my psyche.
A bonus episode edited by Seth.
Which is just the raw file. So don't say anything bad, because I'm not editing it out. Don't compare Marvel Cinematic Universe fandoms to QAnon. Because I'm not editing that out like you will. Oh boy. You good? I mean, there's not a lot in this episode. I mean, there's a lot in this episode, but I mean, we kind of went through. It's sloppy. I actually really hated the little battle bit on the boat, and I didn't really care for it, and I was ready to be done. So I'm fine now that we have reached that point in our review episode to just be done.
Oh, thank God. Cut goes here. Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a
Andrew, first put-up. I like when Mark Spector talks to Professor Harrow in the psych ward. I don't know why, but I do.
And here's where we figure that out.
Join us next time in our bonus in 55.5. My second put-up is there's not a lot in this episode. I liked the flip of Mark being the fragile one. I mean, it's not really a flip because Steven's not like the confident one, but I like the change in Mark where he's just like, I'm actually like hiding everything. I don't know. I agree that what you would say where it's just like, well, what's the point? And it's messy and you're not wrong, but it's different. And that's all I need. My put down is I absolutely hated the end where they're fighting sand people on, not like racist sand people, when they're fighting people made of literal sand on the boat. I thought it was super boring and I didn't care and it didn't matter.
Is there the sand people? Racist? Isn't sand people the name of the... Oh, those are Tusken Raiders in Star Wars. They go...
Yeah, maybe Luke calls them sand people.
Anyway, my first put up is I like the boat through the sands. I think it's a cool, fun, magic visual.
I do too, but I hated that purple and gold clouds.
I kind of liked it. I don't know. The whole thing was like, visually, it was interesting. Like,
it was like too dark or whatever.
But it was cool. My second put up is... Are you going to
say the abusive mom?
No, I liked when Khonshu says, you will be my moon knight.
I like how he paused.
I chuckled. I kind of love it. It's so
dumb.
stupid. And again, like, it's dumb, but it's dumb in a way that I like. Especially because, like, no one calls him Moon Knight, and he has no reason to, like, take upon a superhero name for himself, because he's not really a superhero, because outside of Spider-Man, superheroes don't actually exist in the MCU. They're all government
It is a
enforcers.
dumb thing that, like, works after the fact for me, but in a show that I'm trying to enjoy, I'm like, no, don't.
In a show that I wasn't enjoying,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, give me that.
But
dumb
that's just,
name
I mean,
drop.
like we always say, that's the stuff we like in comics, and I mean, that is a bullet in my chamber of fun things to talk about the MCU about.
It's better than, like, most of the other stuff where they kind of, like, dance around that shit. I forget what I watched recently. I watched something where they, like, danced around saying
The title of the movie.
the term or something. So I, like, it's better than him being like, you'll be my warrior, my knight, working under the cover of the moon, or something stupid where he's like,
Where it's like
"You
a
said the
puzzle,
thing, but
yeah,
not the
it's like-
thing."
It's too stupid to just come out and say it, but it's like, but it's worse when you're
He just
dancing
said
around
the
it.
stupid thing,
He just
and I
owned
was
up
like,
to it.
yay.
That pause is so dumb, too. You think he paused and everyone was just like on the edge of their seat, and then he's like, my
Is he gonna
Moon
say
Knight.
it?
Oh my god! He is his Moon Knight!
I threw my popcorn in the air.
Like, I just don't care.
My put down is going to be, there are a lot of things to choose from. I think it's got to be the psych ward stuff, just because it doesn't have any purpose other than to just be the idea that someone had in an earlier draft that was salvaged and cut apart and shoved into this bit here because it's the only place they could pretend it fit.
I think that is totally fair.
Hated it.
As someone who that was my put up, I think that's totally fair. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with interference.
Watcher. Boop.
Seth,
We're going to be watching
Now the mics
the
are off.
Wait, no. Are we doing my deep dive into my brain?
after the mics are truly off, and
The next time.
and you're sitting alone in the dark with nothing but your existential crisis.
I'm gonna use my phone as like a recorder at night, and I'll send it to you. Now we're gonna be watching the final episode of Moon Knight, of Khonshu's Moon Knight. What do you think it's gonna be called? Since they don't give us episode titles, I think it's gonna be called
Werewolf by Moon Knight. People were saying, I saw something about how each end of the credits thing, the moon gets a little more full.
I wondered if that was a thing or if I was.
One of the creators said, like, it's happening for a reason, and someone's like, is it because of Werewolf
Is
by
it because
Night?
of Moon Knight?
I wouldn't be surprised if Werewolf by Night shows up, just because, like, I don't know what else that could be.
I mean, it's got to tie into something. Yeah.
They gotta tease something, but it's also just like I said, there's already so much crammed in.
What if
this
it's the
finale.
full
Where the
moon,
fuck
but
do you
then there's
throw
also
the-
like, then you see but then the Guardian ship flies over it, and people are like, yeah, that's a thing I know. And then Iron Man flies behind that.
If Werewolf by Night doesn't have a gem from the moon in his chest that turns him into a werewolf, and he has a laser sword, I don't want any part of it.